May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Good morning, everyone. Great to see you all. Well, here we are, friends, at the start of a new year, and we begin this year, as we do every year, with the story of a quest, a sacred journey from a distant land by a mysterious group of people known simply as Magi, with a quest to find a holy child that they believed was truly special. A journey that was no doubt long and challenging, not to mention the unexpected brush with a murderous king whose jealousy and tyranny nearly brings their quest to an abrupt end. A journey marked by twists and turns, ups and downs, that ultimately brings them face to face with Jesus. Many of us here this morning have perhaps an acute appreciation for what it's like to start the new year with a challenging journey. Anybody here fly Southwest this Christmas? Or maybe you found yourself stuck at an airport, or stuck on an interstate in the middle of a snowstorm, or stuck at your in-laws for an extra few days. Or maybe you never even got to your destination because the journey came to an abrupt end. There's a reason why, for centuries, the metaphor of life as a journey has resonated with so many. As a traveler encounters the expected and the unexpected along the way, so do each of us in our journey of faith and life. Shifting expectations, plans getting changed or challenged or canceled, itineraries turning out different than anticipated. Life is a spectacular adventure, and none of us get through it without compelling stories to tell along the way. So what's your story? How did you get here? What forks in the road have you encountered? What are your big moments? Who are your fellow travelers? What are you thankful for? Who are you thankful for? Where do you still need to go in your journey? What's your story? A few months ago, I was visiting with one of our wonderful seniors, who is, I believe, the oldest member of this parish at the rich age of 98. She and I were having a beautiful, connective conversation about her life journey as we sat outdoors, basking in the sunshine on a beautiful, warm fall Wednesday afternoon. And at one point in our conversation, when we came to a comfortable silence, I leaned into the subject of the end of life as her priest and spiritual shepherd, one of those beautiful honors that I have as a priest, as a clergy person. And I simply asked her, how do you feel about the next season in your life? And she paused and she thought about it for a few moments. And then, as though to answer the real question that she believed I was asking, she said, I'm not scared, but I'm really curious. I'm curious. Wow. And in that moment, I realized that this is probably one of, if not the most important pieces of wisdom that life has to offer. And I want to put it in the form of a question for us today as we contemplate the journey of faith and life, as you contemplate your journey of faith and life. And this is the question: are you still curious? Are you still curious? In 1955, in Life magazine, there appeared an article by Albert Einstein. It was entitled, "Old Man's Advice to Youth: Never Lose a Holy Curiosity." And I'm going to just read a quote from it. Einstein says, "The important thing is not to stop questioning, Curiosity has its own reason for existence. One cannot help but be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery each day. Let me just read that last part. It is enough if one tries merely to contemplate a little of this mystery each day. For a long time I wondered why Jesus used a child to demonstrate what it looks like to have great faith, until I had my own kids. And then I realized there really is a connection between faith and wide-eyed curiosity. Curiosity, the quest for the mystery and the unknown. It is demonstrated in its purest form in children. These are not props. This is like happening right in front of our eyes today. One study showed that the average preschooler asks somewhere between 100 and 200 questions a day. And if you're a parent of a young child, you probably know the trauma of this. It reminds me of a meme I saw just this week that said, "My child asked me what it's like to be a parent. So I interrupted them every 11 seconds until they burst out in tears." Now, naturally, the number of questions that we ask about our world decreases as we grow, as we learn more, as our curiosity gets satisfied. But tell me if this isn't true. Sometimes it feels like we get to a place in life where we know everything there is to know, or we feel like we do, where we have the answers and we engage the world with our answers rather than with our questions. I'm going to tell you a story now, one that some of you have heard that I shared years ago with you. But this is a story that for me captures the essence of the problem with engaging the world with our answers and not with our questions. So years ago, I was returning from my home, Israel, Palestine. I was on the plane coming back to the U.S. And I was sitting next to an Israeli man, and we, were very kind to each other for a moment. We chatted, and then I realized before long that we had a lot in common, he and I. It was a very cordial, interaction. And we were stuck on the plane for hours, right? Getting to where we needed to go. And I think that we both had this sense of, we can have a very constructive conversation here. A rational Palestinian and a rational Israeli sitting next to each other. We can talk about this conflict in a way that might be more healing and less like talking at each other. So we started talking, and I asked him at one point, I said to him, feeling very comfortable, I said, "So where do we start? Where do we start with this whole, fixing this whole thing?" And he said, "Look, man, we need to get the leaders out of the way and just let the people talk, because the people want to solve this thing." And I was like, "I agree with you 100%. So where do we start after that?" And he says, "It starts with the Palestinians stopping aggression against Israelis." So I listened to that, and I was like, "Well," and I said to him, "Well, what about before that?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, 1948. And he goes, "Well, what happened in 1948? It's okay, this is just the conversation that's happening. And I said to him, "Well, Palestinians were kicked out of their homes by force. My parents were displaced from their home in 1948. And he listened for a second, and he goes, "Oh, come on, that didn't happen in your family." And I said, "Well, hold on a second. We're talking stories. I'm not telling you like something I read. I'm sharing with you the story of my family." And he was like, "Look, that didn't happen in 1948. There's all kinds of propaganda out there, whatever." And I said to him, "Okay, listen, how about this?" And realizing that we weren't getting anywhere, I said, "How about this? We obviously need to do some research. How about when we get off this plane, we commit that we're going to explore and study and try to find what the stories are on the other side? Because I have a feeling there's some stories that you might not know, and I'm sure there are ones that I don't know." And he said, "Listen, I know what happened in 1948. You go and do your studies, and you find out what really happened." And then we were stuck on the plane for 4 more hours, you know? And you know, what I sat with in that moment is like, this was going in such a beautiful direction, and what stopped it was the answers. It was the minute curiosity stopped, the answers kind of got in the way, and that's what stopped it. And I'm sharing this with you kind of as a personal story, but more to say that I probably have more stories to share with you about ways in which I myself have let the answers interrupt curiosity. And it doesn't lead to greater awareness. It actually leads to a smaller world. I think, as I reflect on this, I think that we work hard as human beings subconsciously. We work hard to get to a place in life where we know exactly what to expect. The predictable is safe. You can plan your life around it. You know the outcome. Less ambiguity means more certainty, and we like certainty. Am I saying anything that we don't all know here? It is so much easier to have people and situations conform to what we already believe is true than to allow cracks to form in our well-fortified worldviews. But to be truly curious is an act of faith. Faith that the world will not fall apart when you entertain realities and stories and experiences that are different from yours or different than what you always thought was true. What do you do when you've always believed that the world is flat, and all the literature talks about the world being flat, and your religious worldview is built on the idea that the world is flat, and someone comes along and says the world is actually round? What do? Curiosity is the difference between stagnation and growth. Without curiosity, there is no adventure. There's no progress. There's no conflict. There's no movement. To be curious is to have faith. While there's a very important place for answers, it's the questions. It's the curiosity where we grow the most, intellectually, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I think about something that Rob Bell once said. He said that when he interacts with people, he finds what they're passionate about, and that's what he talks about. And this is how he puts it. He said, every person, from the youngest to the oldest, is an expert on something. Something they love, that they've dedicated their life to. It could be a video game, it could be anything. And he says that when he interacts with people, he tries to get to what that thing is as quickly as possible, just so that they can talk about it and he can learn something. And you know, that combined with kind of a thought that I've had recently, I've kind of gotten bored with my interactions with people. I don't know if you've ever been there, where you share something and kind of you meet other people and you share the same stories, and then you share the same opinions with other people, and you realize, I've heard myself talk for so long. I already know what I believe. I already know what I think. What a beautiful thing to step back and just cultivate the curiosity of getting to know what other people think and what they believe. What a beautiful thing to do as we enter into 2023, cultivating greater curiosity about other people's lives. So I want to close today coming back to the story of the Magi. I didn't plan it this way, but when I went back to read what Sarah wrote in the Crossroads, Sarah, as you know, is our resident theologian and teacher, and I loved her reflection on the Magi in the Crossroads newsletter this Friday. So I'm going to just read an excerpt from this, and we'll close here. What might it look like for us to imitate the Magi's behavior, taking the initiative to go outside of our own boundaried worlds in curiosity, respect, and generosity toward people who are outside of our own spheres, traditions, and social circles? The Magi came ready to recognize the holy outside of their religious tradition, willing to take risks and ready to be changed by what they saw. What might it look like for us to chart a bold path toward the holy wherever it is to be found, to risk being changed by such an encounter, redirected, sent down an unfamiliar road in the faith that God awaits and guides our way. We are called to risk ourselves and our well-worn spiritual understandings in order to meet God in new ways and new places, and to allow ourselves to be changed, enlarged, and finally transformed. The Magi are so important to our Christian story because they are witnesses to God's invitation in the incarnation to encountering the holy not only in the human, but also in what is foreign to us, what is risky, what is beyond our small worlds and comfort zones. So St. John's, may God bless you in 2023, and may God bless your radical curiosity. Let's stand together now and speak the words of the Agape Creed together.